Hi everyone, welcome to our fourth webinar for Expressive Arts exhibition. Good morning, Deva.
Good morning, Valor. How are
How are
you?
you? Yeah, I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good.
All right. So as you can see, we have two moderators for today's session, myself, Valer, and Ms. Deva. I would like to welcome all of you to this live forum, titled How Expressive Arts Can Be Used for Community Mental Well-Being, brought to you by our School of Psychology, Segi College, Subang Jaya.
Okay, I think before we start, we'll do a quick tech check and
Yeah,
see if everything is okay. So I hope all the participants can hear us and can see us clearly. So if you can, please do type yes in the comment. I think we're good to go, Valor. Maybe we could start?
yeah, sure. So for those who have just joined in, I would like to welcome you once again to this live forum on how expressive arts can be used for community mental well-being. A quick briefing to everyone before we start. So as we know, Deva,
Mm-hmm.
this is our fourth webinar for the Expressive
Yep.
Arts exhibition initiated by our School of Psychology at Segi College Subang Jaya. So participants, you are welcome to participate in our virtual exhibition by submitting any types of creative artwork, which will be displayed on our Instagram page. And we're still open for submissions, right,
Yes,
Deva?
we are. And as you can see on screen right now, these are the submission links, especially on Segi EAEM 2021 Instagram page, and you can see all those submissions we've received so far displayed there.
Yeah, so to participate and keep yourself updated, do follow us on our Instagram and Facebook page, as you can see on the screen.
Okay, I think we can move on with the forum.
Yeah, sure. So moving on with our forum today, our session should take approximately
Yep.
1 hour.
Mhm.
So during the session, we encourage our participants to type their thoughts and questions in the chat box, and our speaker today will try her best to answer their questions during the Q&A session at the end of the forum.
Yes.
Yeah, so we will also like to inform everyone that this forum is being recorded and
Mhm.
it will be used by Segi University and colleges in the future.
Okay, I think we could start with the webinar already, and I hope the participants are ready for an exciting webinar forum style. So we're having some discussion with our speaker today. So are you guys ready? Type one if you're ready in the comment. Okay, looks like we are ready, and I think we can begin, Miss Valor.
Yeah.
All right, so let me just quickly introduce you today to our speaker. We would like to welcome Ms. Pam Gunaratnam. She's a registered counselor and the founder of Humankind. Now, Humankind is a locally founded social enterprise, and Humankind is on a mission to improve the social and emotional well-being of all communities, especially vulnerable communities. So she will take us through the work that she's done with different communities. And Miss Valer, let's welcome Miss Pam today.
Yeah.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning, Miss Pam.
Yeah. Good morning, Ms. Pam. How are you?
Hello. I'm good, thank you. Hi, Deva.
Hi.
All right. So, Ms. Pam, so as Deva introduced you as the founder of Humankind and a registered counselor, so can you briefly tell us what moved you to have founded Humankind?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. First of all, thank you very much for having me this morning. It's a pleasure to be here. So, Humankind Week was started in 2016, and basically, it was founded in response to the mental health gap that exists in Malaysia. I think we all know that there is a rising number of mental health issues, and in the country, and I think the pandemic has just exacerbated that and also brought it more and more to everybody's awareness. But we started Humankind really because of that mental health gap that we saw, and recognizing that if we depend on professionals alone, we're probably not going to be able to meet it. And so Humankind really is about how do we identify, empower, activate people within the community. So we believe there is kindness in everyone, and everyone has the capacity to be of service in some way. Everyone has value, everyone can contribute. And so what we did with Humankind is how do we empower and activate communities to be able to respond to the mental health needs of those who are vulnerable and at risk within their own community or within communities that they care about. So this is really why and how we started Humankind.
Okay. That is a great explanation. That is a great initiative. And I think this is definitely something required for our society today.
Yeah, certainly.
Right. So looking at Humankind here now, you've basically partnered with so many different organizations and NGOs themselves, as you can see on the screen. Now, maybe you could share with us a little bit as to how Humankind has partnered and how, basically a little bit in regards to what is the process of getting these. How do you actually kind of like conduct these activities?
Right. Thank you. So we decided very early on that we were going to partner. So our strategy was actually going to be partnering with community organizations. So we typically partner with organizations that either shelter, educate, or in some way, feed, or some way provide some form of service, social service to vulnerable and at-risk communities. So, communities, for instance, like Yayasan Chowkit, which works with the urban poor in the Chowkit area, or Pure Life Society, which provides shelter and education. So we typically partner with these sorts of organizations that already have gathered at-risk individuals, and then we go in and we specifically provide the mental health or well-being programs through the organizations to the beneficiaries in that manner. Yeah. So
Okay.
that way we
All
can
right.
just focus on the mental health work.
Okay, all right. So looking at the work that is being done by Humankind, so you've used art as a form of medium for mental health and maintaining well-being.
Right.
So could you tell us a little bit more in regards to what kind of methods, that has been, or, a little bit of history of why using arts in regards to, um,
Mm. Yeah, so I think maybe traditionally we've always thought of psychotherapy or mental health care as a talking therapy, right?
mm,
Um, and we've also often thought of art as something that only belongs to the artist or artist community or people who have skill or talent. And I'm not sure about you guys, but I know for me, I definitely don't have any art talent at all. And so, for the longest time, I probably thought that, the art world was not for me. By the way, you guys have a cool background, very appropriate now for what I'm going to talk about, because actually it wasn't that way in the beginning. So if you can, I think I've given you a slide, and when people started looking at how did art first get used in society, they found this object and what is now known as the Venus of Willendorf, and that was found that was made almost 25,000 years ago. I think it was found about 100 some years, maybe more than 120 years ago now. But when we looked at the history of art, first starting with the Venus of Willendorf, which is one of the oldest art objects that we have, um, it was our archaeologists tell us that it was actually made as a fertility item. So it was made to heal women, it was made to help women to conceive or to have children. And then as we look at how art is used in various cultures, whether it's traditional cultures, like indigenous communities and things like that, we see things like dance, rhythms, music as part and parcel of their own communities. Healing rituals for themselves. So it wasn't necessarily how we think of art today as something of aesthetic value. Art actually began as very, very closely tied to healing and well-being. And even as time goes on, we know we have talismans and sculptures and things like that. For instance, the Jan Hut sculptures, which are done by our own Orang Asli community, they're actually seen as sculptures that the doctors, the traditional doctors or traditional medicine people will actually try to put the illnesses onto the sculpture. So take the illnesses out of the individual
Away.
that's suffering, yeah, and put it into the sculptures. So this was a way of healing the community. And then, things like talismans, people would carry these sorts of things to ward off evil or ward off illnesses and things like that. So you see a very long history. So it's only actually quite recent that art was only like for museums or for art galleries. This picture, is it's the stuff of Asclepius, and that was really a very, very ancient symbol where in the olden times they put up this rod with a snake, and it was rumored that if you looked upon that rod, you would be healed. And today, that is the symbol of medicine. And you see the World Health Organization uses that symbol again attributing to the very early use of this sculpture as thought of being able to heal people. So yeah, so basically what I'm saying is the arts has been historically very much tied to health and well-being, and it's only a recent thing that actually we've taken art out of that specter and sort of just put it in the domain of just artists alone. And so one of the things that we do in Humankind is actually going back and seeing how the arts can actually um, promote that same well-being and healing as it originally did.
Okay. Thank you very much, Miss Pam, for that insightful, going back to the journeys of where art started and how it started and the use of art in many different areas of life, especially healing. Because I think traditionally, many communities, as you said, tribe communities, it started off from there. And yeah, we can actually see a lot of lineage of art and use of art coming from those days.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes, exactly.
right.
Across different cultures, we can see that until now, the history. So it's really interesting to listen to Pam sharing on the history and the
Definitely.
healing effect of arts and how they used, among our ancestors. All right. So Pam, coming back to humankind.
Mhm.
So what are the different expressive art techniques humankind uses since this is the main service at humankind?
Yeah, so Vala, I want to just comment about what you just said, which is, using the arts, and we have, even in Malaysia, our own traditions
Yes.
in using the arts. And I think that's very relevant here because in Malaysia, we have very many different languages, right? We have the main languages, but we also have the dialects.
Mm-hmm.
In Malaysia, we also have, different tribal languages that's being
Yep.
spoken.
Mm-hmm.
And then also the interesting thing about Malaysia is we are a country that has welcomed many refugees, people, and
Right.
provided shelter actually for displaced people. So within our own country, if you think about the different kinds of people, the cultures, the languages that is within our own country, sometimes the talking therapy can be very limited. First of all, because sometimes as psychologists or counselors, we may only be able to speak one language, right?
Yes.
And the people that we're working with, maybe they're speaking their own language, and they're not able to express what they've gone through in comfortably either in English or Bahasa. And so that was also another reason why Humankind looked at the arts, because the arts gave us a way to actually transcend those cultural and language barriers and able to address mental health in a more a comfortable form. Arts also is allows us it to be delivered in a non-stigmatizing way. A lot of our work later on you'll see is with children, and art is a very natural way that children express themselves. So there are lots of different uh, reasons why we actually veered away from the talking therapies and into the expressive arts.
So I think, Pam, you're actually saying that art in itself is a language. We don't require, I mean, you don't, sometimes, you don't require, because talking therapy traditionally employs different types of language, because talking therapy, sorry about that, because talking therapy requires, language basically, so we need to speak a common language, but with art you don't require a common language, and
Exactly.
we could connect through art, and just colors and textures, and I don't know, there's so many different things that you can use as materials, not necessarily
Yeah.
things that you have to purchase. You can just use anything from the nature and so on, and that in
And
itself
that's,
transforms, right?
yeah, that's right. That's right, Eva.
Yeah. So looking at art in itself and using art as a way of expression, how do you think it has how does it art actually help us improve and complement our mental health well-being, and how is it used today?
Right. So I think one of the things that I think you were talking about methodologies and how is like art used. And so for us in Humankind, we actually use the expressive arts. And so expressive arts, maybe, yes, great. So the expressive arts is different from traditional art making in terms of the focus of expressive arts is not on the product or the outcome. The focus of expressive arts is on the process, it's on the creative process or the art making process. So the hypothesis is that it's that as you make it or as you create it or in that process of making and creating, that's where the value is and that's where the benefits come by. And it's a little bit even different from art therapy because art therapy also is quite product oriented because at the end of it they want to be able to see the painting or the the art product, and then they make a diagnosis or they make decisions based on that. In expressive arts, we actually don't look at that. The outcome is the pictures has no real value to us. It's actually the process of the art making that has the value. It's about creating a sense of safety. So one of the things that if you were to come to a workshop that we do, one of the things that we would tell you is that nobody's going to judge you, nobody's going to criticize you, nobody's going to correct you, nobody's going to give you feedback and nobody's going to tell you how to do it. So if you want to make all the people red in color or all the people purple in color, that's your form of expression. It's where you are at in the moment. The other thing about expressive arts is it's about self-discovery. So it's about you using this process to learn about yourself, to
Mhm.
get information about how you're feeling about things, about how your perspective about things, how are the internal judgments that are or internal voices that come up for you. So in that process of art making, it's really about you just discovering your own self, and I think the last one, sorry, my slides disappeared. The last one is being present to yourself. So like, how do you how you are in this moment, in this here and now, rather than talking about something that's like a past incident or past negative thing or your hopes for the future. It's expressive arts is really, and that's where the mindfulness bit comes in about just being present and being in that moment and expressing what you feel in that moment. The other so our methodology has two parts. It's the expressive arts, and then the second part, which is the use of the community. So if the art itself is not valued, so to speak, then then we're able to use this method with communities very, very easily because there's no skills or talent needed. Many times people, when we say, oh, it's art, the first thing they'll say to me is, oh, but we don't know how to paint, or oh, we don't know how to draw, oh, our drawing is really bad. So if the art making is not about making a product or achieving a goal, but simply about being with somebody in that moment, being with yourself in that moment, then we're able to use that very effectively with community because no skills, no talent is needed. Volunteers then can be easily trained, and we train them to actually facilitate safe spaces. And there is that sense of mutuality that we really like. As much as you are there to create a safe space,
Mhm.
and then somebody else, your beneficiary or the other person, is there to share with you their experiences. And that can be a very rich and meaningful activity. And then finally, the thing that we do with all our projects is we always train. So part of doing a project is the whole piece of actually training volunteers and then supporting them in doing that project with their community. So if you see about the process, basically is the people would come to us, or organizations would come to us and say, these are the issues or this is the need we'd like to see addressed. We then go about recruiting volunteers, and so sometimes it's about we having a program ready that we can actually use to make the need. Sometimes it's about developing the program, and so many times with our own volunteers it's about co-creating, and that's a really enjoyable process as well, because we also learn from our volunteers and the experiences that they bring. So we can co-create something, and then we deliver the program. And usually we deliver as programs, usually as pilots. We always say that we're learning from that community, we're learning from the work, and then continue to, that whole cycle continues. And we hope that is a sustainable cycle, because if that is able to continue, then those volunteers continue to be able to serve that community, being sensitive to what are the needs and requests from that's coming from them.
Right. Thank you so much,
Thank you
Ms.
so
Pam.
much, Ms. Pam.
I would like to add on to what you said, because I remember when I was part of your volunteering program, I think many years ago.
When was that?
That was really many years ago
Oh, all
during my
right, I
internship.
see.
Yeah, so I did go on to this, and there was a session where Miss Pam allowed us to use paint. She just gave us a black canvas,
Mm-hmm.
no, just a white canvas, and in her studio, and we were just given a lot of paint, and we were
Right.
told, like, just do whatever you want, just paint whatever you want, just go with the flow, let the paint guide you, let the brush guide you. So it was so difficult at first for me, because it was a new experience for me at that point of time. But and I was thinking that, oh my God, I'm so terrible at art. How am I going to produce anything that's going to be beautiful or anything like this? So initially, you would have those challenges in the
Yeah,
beginning.
actually, I like the fact that art, in expressive arts, there is no such thing like right or wrong,
Yep,
or
exactly.
pleasant or unpleasant. It's just like, as Pam mentioned, it's a learning journey where you just express yourself freely.
Exactly. Yeah. So once we go through that process, right? So you just use the paint and the brush and everything. So I remember that my painting was kind of like mostly black with dark colors and so
Mhm.
on. But when you go through a kind of like a um through that painting, you just feel like you're just letting everything out. You're just letting everything out. It doesn't matter how it looks like, but the process of connecting with yourself. And that's how Pam mentioned, having mindfulness and having that awareness of that flow when you are immersed in,
Yeah.
in the arts in itself. So maybe, Pam, we could perhaps talk a little bit more about mindfulness in expressive arts, and how does it actually help us now? How does it improve mindfulness or awareness, in regards to arts?
Yeah, so thank you, Seva, for sharing that. I forgot that you guys actually came to the studio as well. So So I think you've given a really nice example of how mindfulness is, because when you are faced with that blank sheet of paper, and the invitation is basically, you can use the paper and you can use the paint in any way that you'd like. You become aware of all the critical voices. Oh, I'm lousy at this. I don't know how to do this, and you realize that actually the voices are not coming from anybody except yourself. So that first piece of awareness about your own voices and your own judgments and your own things that you tell yourself, your own inner critic that you deal with, and then you're having to face with, okay, now there's this voices telling me I'm lousy at this is not going to be good, I don't know how to do this. And you're in that process of, you're going to have to now, because everybody else in that room is doing something, so so you're feeling like, okay, I've got to do something. And so you're having to be brave. You're taking that step of, okay, just what to do. I'm just going to do it. So you're encountering in that moment. Now, mindfulness it's about being in that moment, right? So in that moment, you're hearing those voices. In that moment, you're having to take action, courageous action. Okay, I'm going to have to do something, so I'm just going to do it. I'm going to face my fears, and I'm going to do it. And then as you begin to do it, then you begin to realize, oh, okay, this is rather interesting. And as the process comes along, then you're like, okay, nobody's saying anything, nobody's judging me, nobody is, and I'm like, okay, seems this is quite fun, and you keep, going on with it. I often tell people, who come, if it's fun, just keep going, keep doing. You're on the right track, right? So you're doing it, and then as you do it, usually at the end of it, I'm not sure whether that was your experience, but usually at the end of it, you feel like, gosh, I just, I feel lighter now. I feel much better now. Nobody did anything to you. Nobody interpreted your
Yep.
drawing. Nobody said anything about it. But that whole sense of, I was able to be with myself. I encountered myself in conversation, and then I expressed myself. And then as a result of that whole thing, actually, I feel much more less stressed, or I feel much lighter now. And that's what we mean about the expressive arts being a process rather than a product. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Thank you, Pam. Yes, for me personally, from that experience, I'll still remember that, because it was about breaking through that hold voices like, okay, you know what, it's going to be ugly, it's going to be ugly, so what, if this is me, at the end of the day, this is a part of me. It's not about the beauty of it, but more of how I feel about producing it, because I produce something and that's meaningful to me. So that was basically the process for me. And Miss Fowler, you have children at home, right? And I'm sure definitely they are always messing up with art and all those kind of things. So I'm sure you've seen some of those really exciting pieces they've put together with their toys and their art and everything. So maybe let's hear it from you a little bit more.
Yeah, sure. So I have two boys at home, and they love arts and they love messy play most of the time. And yeah, we can see amazing thoughts and ideas and the way they are expressing them through arts. And sometimes they just tell stories
Stories.
while
Hmm.
they are painting. Most of the time, I encourage them to paint, and then they play with kinetic sand and some other art styles. Even I can just give them cereal puffs at home. They
That's
can, yeah, they can come
creative.
up with, creative thoughts and ideas. So I can see that through arts, children don't express as adults like
Yep.
adults.
Yep.
They don't have the ability to express verbally their thoughts. So that is one of the best way for us to understand and listen to children
Yeah.
through arts.
Yep.
That's what I believe, with
Right.
what I observe in my children. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, because as we've kind of like understood just now, because art in itself is a language,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
So anyone at any age, regardless of race, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of ability, at the end of the day, is able to use art and to say something, to show something, to create
Mm,
something, or create a meaningful process for themselves. Yeah.
yeah.
So let's. I think we should look at some of the projects by Humankind.
Yeah, so okay, so we know that humankind has undertaken using expressive arts and play as a medium. So Pam, will you please take us through these different projects and how art is used as main tool in humankind?
Okay, before we go to the projects, can I just talk about how arts is in general is used in the world today? So if we could just go back to
Sure.
the
Sure.
slide. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Here we are.
So yeah, great. Thank you. So in terms of the arts, so if we can just go to the next slide, I'm just going to pull up my. So one of the interesting things that art is used in healthcare, in medicine. Arts is used in community work, in ordinary life, in participatory arts. And then arts is also used in psychotherapy. I think a lot of us are probably more familiar with how arts is used in psychotherapy. But let's talk about arts in hospitals, for instance. As I'm just going to give an example. Like, for instance, they found that if hospitals have artwork on the walls, or if hospitals play music in the hallways, rather than it creates people having less stress and less tension. It's really interesting because there have been really nice studies being done about the impact of art in the hospital. And then in the UK, especially, there's been a lot of work in terms of arts in medicine, where they actually, allow musicians and artists to actually go into the wards, or visit with patients, and they find that when patients are exposed to music or allowed to listen to music or have music, less pain medication is needed. So there's very real and significant data in terms of how the arts can be used in hospital setting. Then we go to the arts in psychotherapy, which we all are quite familiar with. We have drama therapy, we have art therapy, we have music therapy. And all of these are very, very valuable in terms of helping us. Maybe the next slide, guys. Helping us to do various things in terms of reconnecting with our bodies, processing trauma, being able to find relaxation, um, finding better ways that we can socialize or be in relationships or learn relationship skills. So the arts and psychotherapy, again, another field that has a lot of research around it, or evidence around it, as being highly effective form of psychotherapy. The arts as participatory, that's another area that is quite interesting, because things like community choirs, I'm not sure, whether you're aware of it, but different states actually have sometimes community choirs, especially for the older folks. And they found that when people take part in community choirs, so this is not like those fancy choirs, where you have to audition and you have to, be able to sing really well in order to participate, like the Philharmonic or something like that. But this is just community choirs, where people come together and they just sing together, and not necessarily to perform, but just the whole, sometimes churches or religious organizations, they have these sorts of community choirs. They found that actually it decreases social isolation, it builds social capital. And then for people with chronic lung illnesses and diseases, it actually builds up, it's a natural way of helping them to build up and recover from those sorts of illnesses. So, choirs like that are tremendously helpful. Drumming circles, there's a nonprofit or a social enterprise in Malaysia called Good Kids. They've done quite a bit of work in terms of drumming circles, and how that's been helping with truancy in school, behavioral problems and behavioral issues. As the children coming together, they're able to build relationships, positive relationships, discipline, and increase their own self-esteem. So things like that. Participatory arts also can be things like, we don't have that so much anymore, but in the olden days, they used to have like sewing circles, or women coming together and sewing together and mending stuff together. These are ways that people participate in the arts to build that sense of community, build that sense of friendship and relationships, that was acted as a buffer towards mental health issues. And you see a lot of that no longer available in our society today. And as a result, you can see what's happened with our own mental health. There is little to no community support anymore, because some of these art activities no longer exist. So that's participatory art. And then the last one is art in everyday life, which is those kinds of things like art workshops that sometimes people go to. People do clay, people do various things that come together and create. And that is also has shown to be very, very effective, especially when you're working with older people, in delaying dementia and things like that. The arts have a nice strong evidence base around it. There's an organization called Artolution, and they do work a lot with refugees, where they actually go into refugee areas, and they actually teach or give the refugee communities art materials and things like that, so that they can decorate the walls or decorate the compound, the villages or the areas where they live. And they find that when people contribute to the aesthetic value of their community, a lot more pro-social behavior occurs. People are far more community-minded, community-oriented towards one another. So the arts have really, really nice benefits beyond just the aesthetics of being in a museum.
And for those different, those different, I mean, the uses of art in different areas, in different communities, different settings. I especially like the part of art being in hospitals. Now, imagine we go into the hospital, we see everything is white and dull, and we are hearing the beeping sounds and that sounds and this sounds, and instead,
That's
you
really
know,
scary.
yeah,
Personally, for
exactly.
myself, I don't prefer to go to hospitals because of the environment
Exactly,
itself.
exactly. So imagine if we could actually lighten up a little bit,
Yeah.
have people have some different type of graffitis or different type of arts on the wall and things like that. We only see that, I think, in the pediatric
Also
wards,
music.
right? Yeah,
Yeah, music
music.
too.
Yeah, so I think this is going to make things much more lighter. I mean, of course, going to the hospital, having diseases or chronic illnesses is not funny, but to help you feel at least a little calmer
Yeah,
going through those type of
exactly.
situations, right? So yeah, I particularly like this, having art and music in hospital, and that should be something that probably we
Yeah, because one of the important thing that we have to look at for those patients with illness, especially chronic illness or terminal illness, taking care of their mental well-being is very important. So
yeah,
in that way, the hospital can actually help them in both ways. As their
mental health.
mental
Yeah,
health.
yeah.
So yeah.
This is a great idea, and I hope participants or anyone that listens to this, or even NGOs or the government agencies themselves could do something about this. And
I think we have seen
definitely,
hospitals with painting
yeah,
on the walls and stuff. some artwork and all, especially the pediatric
Pediatrician,
ward.
yeah.
Yeah, but I like the idea of having music.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's probably
that's
something
that's
that,
more
you know,
relaxing and
yeah,
soothing.
something that the agencies could look into, yeah, in the
Yeah,
future.
sure.
Right. Thank you for bringing those brilliant ideas up for us. And I think right now we could go
Yeah, so let's
into the
go back.
projects. Yeah.
Yeah, go back to my question. So we got to know that Humankind has came up with brilliant projects. Among the projects such as Kitarika, Toy, and Brave Girls. So Pam, please, could you please share more on these projects?
Yeah, sure. So let's talk about so because of the what we've seen as, I mean, about the value of arts. So this is how we use the arts for our community projects. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Kita Reka. And Kita Reka, I think as Malaysians, we all know basically means we create, right? And Kita Reka is our intergenerational arts program, and we have a studio that we use, and we say intergenerational because it's actually open to people of all ages and all skill levels. So it's not like a typical, sometimes when you sign up for an art class or something, they sort of group people according to ages. This is for the kids, this is for the teens, this is for the adults. In our Kita Reka studio, it's the kids and the adults and the older adults, everybody coming together to share a creative space. So we do Kita Reka as a studio setting. We've done that. So we do have a studio that we do that in. Later on, you can go to our website, or you can find us on Facebook, and you can email us, and I'm happy to send information. But so we do have a studio. We also create studios, mobile studios, Kita Reka mobile studios in community settings. So one of the things that we did was we created a Kita Reka studio in Pure Life Society, for instance. They gave us a space, and it was a place where the kids, together with the staff, or the mothers, what they call care mothers and things like that, they could actually come together and do something creative, something fun together. We also, before the MCO started, one of our projects was actually to create Kita Reka studios in a school setting, so that that would be like a safe space in a school for like Vala just mentioned, that how children are naturally drawn, and they really do enjoy, and they find it actually very stress relieving. It's a natural stress reliever for children. So Kita Reka was one of our projects, was actually to try create these studios within a school setting to create a safe space for children to express themselves. So that's the Kita Reka project. The next project is Toy, Together Old and Young. And the Together Old and Young is a project that we have specifically looked at how do we work with older volunteers, so meaning volunteers 55 and above. So this was a sustainability project or sustainability experiment to see whether if we were to use older adults, would that, first of all, would they be able to facilitate the arts to children? Would that be able to do it in a long-term capacity? Because most times, if you take in volunteers who are either students or who are in the younger age group, they're very focused on their career. They have young families. They often don't have time to volunteer, or they can't volunteer too much. Whereas older adults usually have a lot of time on their hands. And they're usually also in a stage of life. I mean, if you're studying developmental psychology, older adults in that stage of life, they're looking to give back. So Together Old and Young is basically giving the older community an opportunity to be able to be involved in a community-based project, a project where they live. So we look at, for instance, if you live in SS2 in PJ, or if you live in Cheras, or Subang, or things like that. How do we recruit from the older adults within the community? Because again, older adults usually have transportation issues. So if they can volunteer within their own community, that solves quite a bit of logistical issues. So so how do we bring those people, older adults, within that community to serve the children, to serve in the schools or in the NGOs within their own community, using the expressive arts? So that's how that's basically Together Old and Young. The next project is Brave Girls. I think Vala was really interested in Brave Girls. Brave Girls, again, taking from a developmental psychology perspective, we know that girls between the ages of 9 to 12 or 13, they're beginning to develop their own sense of themselves. They're beginning to develop their own sense of confidence, what we call as taking initiative, taking you know becoming or exploring with their identity. And this is a stage that can be very vulnerable for girls, and because it's normal then for society or the community or parents or teachers or things like that to come in and say you shouldn't be like that, you should be like this, or especially if it's in a positive way, it's not quite so bad. But if it's in a negative way, in terms of everybody is involved in this sort of activity, or everybody is involved with that sort of activity, the pressure to actually try, conform is quite great. And so the Brave Girls Project is really about how do we empower girls from a young age, at that vulnerable age where they're beginning to develop and get a sense of their own identity. How do we empower them and promote bravery in them, resiliency in them? And so this is how really the Brave Girls Project came to be. We're still pilot testing it. What you see is the first group of volunteers, which we worked with just very, very recently. And it was done entirely online with two beneficiary organizations. And that was really exciting. I'll show you later some of the impact statements that was being made from that project, but that's the Brave Girls Project. And I think the last project I can talk about today is the Expressive Sandwork projects. And the Expressive Sandwork projects is basically used of sandboxes and miniatures. So next slide. Where volunteers then give children, or children have access to a variety of miniature items. Deva was part of that project as well, where children are given a variety of miniature objects. They're given a sandbox, and it's a 12-week project where children then, through that whole process, again, very process-oriented, children are able to express or tell their stories or share their stories in an absolutely non-verbal way with the volunteer that they're working with. So these are some of the examples of projects that Humankind uses. And you can see that in each of the situation, language is not a barrier, cultural differences are not a barrier, age is not a barrier to be able to provide mental health support and services.
Okay. Thank you, Pam. So look like Deva, Humankind is actually they have used different techniques
Yeah,
across the projects that
they have
they have,
definitely.
and we can see that these projects are very close to our community and definitely would benefit our community and society from different backgrounds and age group. Especially, yes, I'm very much interested with the Brave Girls
Project.
project. Yeah, because that particular age is quite vulnerable for
Yeah,
girls.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's the important stage where they seek for their self identity. So yeah, great effort and great ideas, Pam, from Humankind.
I
Thank you.
especially like the fact that they are mobile because they don't have to go to a
Yeah,
certain place because vulnerable communities, they don't have access to a lot of things, and it's great that Humankind goes to these
yeah,
communities and does these activities with them instead of expecting too much of them. So I think that is a really, really great initiative. We need this in our society, we need this in our community, especially vulnerable communities like children, refugee communities, and so on. Right. So now looking at all these projects that you have undertaken, definitely you would have seen some type of result for you to continue to create programs, assign programs and develop different types of programs. So definitely you've seen some type of results in the wellness and the mental health of these vulnerable communities. There's some changes definitely there. So what could have been the outcomes that you have seen, you've personally experienced, or some of the studies that's there that you could share with us today in regards to expressive arts?
Yeah, okay. So if we can, so one of the things I was telling Theva and Valar, that we need one of the areas of volunteering that we would be really great is on research, looking for research volunteers or research interns and things like that. Because you're just collecting evidence and data. Sometimes we're so busy doing the work, we don't often have time to actually sit down and document everything, which we absolutely need to do much, much better. But in the last two projects, we actually took a bit of time. So I can show you some of the feedback. So I think there's a slide, not sure which one we're going to show you first. Yeah, so this is the Brave Girls. So our partner organization was with Taylor's, and they did a really nice job in collecting the impact report from the beneficiaries that they were working with. And you can see that from the feedback from the girls, um, all of them said that they felt like it was a very beneficial session. They said that they enjoyed being able to explore the theme of bravery. They felt like the volunteers did a great job in understanding them. They felt heard and understood. So again, these are, if you think about our volunteers, they're not necessarily psychologists or counselors. They're actually people from all walks of life. And so the fact that 100% of the girls said we felt heard and understood shows that actually volunteers can be very powerful in creating a safe space and listening, providing a listening ear to girls, And then, in terms of what are some of the benefits, they felt more, they enjoyed being able to express their emotions. They felt like it was a wonderful creative activity. There was the sense of relaxation. They understood what bravery meant. And also, interestingly enough, they felt more confident. And I think that comes not just through the project itself. We used clay for this particular project, but also just being able to be heard and understood, and their work recognized rather than judged. Yeah, so that was one of the impact reports that we got from just our recent Brave Girls project. And then the other one was the toy project, where we were doing that online again with the older volunteers. And again, you can see, 100% felt like they felt very comfortable. They enjoyed it. 60% said that they liked the person running the program. Again, these are young children, and the volunteers are older adults. They're 55 and above. Traditionally, children would normally be scared or intimidated by older people. But again, you see how the use of volunteers and the use of just that non-judgmental space can create that sense of safety, that sense of enjoyment for the children in being able to express themselves, especially during this time. So these two projects went on in the last 3 months. It's in the last year, since January, February, March. When we were under lockdown, the MCO again. So I'm personally really happy with what we're seeing as feedback from our beneficiaries in the community. And then I think the last slide I just had, we put in, and that's the World Health Organization, WHO, did a commissioned a study in terms of trying to gather evidence for whether the arts really does improve health and well-being. And so, for those of you who are interested in that more academic type work, you can please feel free to scan, download the document, and you can look at how the arts is used, not just used in many countries, and the evidence that's gathered for its benefits.
Right. Thank you. So it seems that arts, expressive arts, the use of expressive arts in in a therapy and therapeutic settings has scientific evidence, and it is backed by these evidences and the research that's been done to support the outcomes of expressive arts, and how do they actually improve and maintain and provide a way of improving mindfulness, improving well-being, improving overall mental health, really, right? So we it is not simply just picking up a tool and just painting or whatever it is, but it has been researched, it has
Yes.
been looked at, it has been looked at for long periods of time. It's been used in healing traditionally, and now we are coming back to using some of these naturally, what's naturally available to us, like expressing, right? So
Yeah,
and
exactly.
using mediums such as whatever tools that we
Yeah,
can
so
get.
this indicates the reliability and authenticity of the
Yeah.
findings from expressive arts.
Yes.
Okay, so we can see that based on what Pam shared with us
Hmm.
on the findings and all. So volunteers are actually playing a key
Key role.
role
Yeah.
in the expressive arts projects that they have. So So, Pam, what is the process to become a volunteer? Because I believe that many of our viewers,
Students,
participants,
yeah.
or even students from be it SEGI or other institutions, they will be much interested to become a volunteer with your
Even
projects.
with the part of the research that you've mentioned, maybe they
Yes,
would like to even for
exactly.
themselves discover what could be the effects and efficacies of
Yeah.
expressive arts.
Yeah, so you can go to our website. It's www.humankind. So if you go .my, so if you go to our website, you can see volunteer with us, and there is a form you can fill in. Right now, we have quite a few of people on our waiting list, so please be patient with us. And we are now opening up more projects, so we will contact you. So we're a small team, so again, please be patient, but do go to our website, do sign up. You can volunteer there. We'll put you on a waiting list, and once projects begin to open up, then we'll start contacting you. If you have specific questions that you want answered, you can ask me today. That would be great. If not, you can email me again. Uh, you might be patient with my responses, but I'll get there. Um, Facebook is great. If you can like us on Facebook, every time we have a new project, we always upload the opportunity on our Facebook page. So that's a way to keep current as to what we're doing. So like us on Facebook, then you'll definitely know about upcoming projects that we're doing.
Right. So, audiences, if you would like to continue and get more information with Humankind or of Humankind, be a part of Humankind and be part of the projects and so on, please go on to their Facebook, and as we are showing on screen, or we showed on screen. Yeah. So we are welcoming. So, Valor, do we have any questions today? We are welcoming. Welcoming participants to ask any questions if you have. Now, Miss Pushpa has mentioned that I would like to volunteer myself in your coming projects. Yeah, that's great, Miss Pushpa. You could go on to the Facebook. Is that right, Miss Pam?
You can go to, actually, if you know you want to volunteer already, just go straight to our website, and then just
Okay.
say, I'd like to volunteer. There's a form you can fill in. So one of the things that we do, Theva was one of our volunteers for our sandwork project, and I think if you remember, part of the project is we will actually interview you. So
Yeah.
all volunteers get interviewed in person. When you're working with vulnerable communities, there are certain steps that
Ground
needs to be
rules.
taken.
Yeah.
So, we will volunteer, we will interview you in person. So the project leader usually does that. And then subsequently, now what we do across the board, because a lot of our projects is with children, we actually do JKM background checks so that we make sure that all our volunteers are, are not on any sexual offender list. So we do clear background checks with all our volunteers. And that's part of the process. And then finally, you will be invited for the training, where we will train and then provide you with the skills and if there's necessary tools for the project, and then be supported with the team lead usually will support you in carrying out the project with the communities that you have indicated that you'd like to work with. Yeah.
Okay. Great. That's great. So if there are any questions, we welcome questions from our participants. If you have any other questions in regards to, if you want to know more about expressive arts or anything else that you would like to ask Pam here today, let's just see if we have any questions coming in.
Yeah, Pam, I have a question here. All right. What is the duration like for the whole process of being a volunteer from the time they fill in the form until they are officially recruited as a volunteer? Roughly, how long it does it take?
So usually when you fill in the form, that puts you on a waiting list, so to speak. So you guys would be the first to know when we're launching a project. So that's how the waiting list works. And so and then it depends when we're going to schedule projects. So sometimes if you're on that list, it's not an immediate thing. Where else the Facebook, when we post there on Facebook, we're open now for a project, it's within the next month,
Yeah.
usually, that we're going to launch the project. So we'll probably get in touch with you within the week. We'll probably schedule an interview with you within that week, and it moves pretty fast in that way. And usually when we launch a project, you'll see all the dates. You know, this is the dates of the training. These are the project dates. This is the date of the closing the project. So and we always ask that you fully commit to all the dates. So it cannot be like I can come some days, I cannot come some days, because usually you'll be working with a child throughout that whole project or with a community. And so it can't be that, oh, you know, some days you show up, some days you don't. So we do have pretty high standards for our volunteers. Yeah.
All right, that's great. So we have a next question from Janato
Afrain.
Afrain.
Yep.
Can I volunteer too as an international student?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got lots of international students volunteering with us. Yeah,
Okay,
no problem.
that's great. Yep.
You might be
Um,
interested to know also that we last year, just before the lockdown, so in January of last year, we actually launched a project in Jaipur. So we actually also did an international
Jaipur,
project
okay.
ourselves. Yeah.
Ah,
Amazing,
that's nice.
amazing. Right. We're still taking questions. Maybe a couple more questions, one or two
Yeah.
more questions. Yeah. In the meantime, I think I have a question for Miss Pam. Let's just what prompted you? I mean, we're curious as to understanding like what made you. I mean, you're a licensed counselor, right? Generally, we go into talk therapy and so on. So, what moved you into using the arts in itself personally? Your personal engagement with this.
Okay, so so my background is actually I studied psychology, and so my background, my graduate undergraduate work has been in psychology, and that this was almost 25 years ago, and at a time when Malaysia actually didn't have all these wonderful universities like SEGI, you know, offering a bachelor's in psychology. So I actually had to go to overseas. Because there was no schools in Malaysia at that time offering a psych or a counseling training. And so I've been in this profession or in this field of talking therapy or psychology for the longest time. And about maybe now 10 or 15 years ago, I began to get really tired myself. And interestingly enough, at that time, I didn't feel like talking about it. So when you ask me what is it about for me personally, at the time when I was going through my own, just questioning about whether I still want to continue in this field, what was, how did I want to, move forward with my life and things like that. I began to have those feelings, but I didn't feel like talking to anybody. And I guess maybe I also didn't have the words really to explain what I was feeling, right? And so what I did actually was in the mail, somebody sent me something about some art retreat, and where it was held in Singapore or something like that. And it was the way they advertised it was, you don't have to talk to anybody, you don't have to explain your painting, you don't have to do anything, just come and paint for the next couple of days. And I thought, okay, let's try this. And that was really my introduction to expressive arts, where I went for this 3-day painting thing. No, I talked to nobody talked to me. And instead, I just used the paints and the brushes and the papers to just paint. And it was great because, like I told you earlier, I always thought that I'm not a good artist. I was, I couldn't do it. And because this provided this safe space where I didn't have to explain my painting or worry that somebody was going to come and correct my painting, it gave me 3 full days of actually just being able to be with myself and and express those feelings in a visual form. So whether it was the use of the colors or the textures or the strokes, or the imagery, it just all that confusion and stress and struggling all just kind of came out on the paper. And for me, it was just really life changing for me. And that it was through that I began to see the power of how the arts can work in a person's life. And that actually led then my journey to discovering more and more, studying about the expressive arts, researching more about it, and then using it in various forms, in my practice. So that's the personal story.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think, and I believe that has been a mission for you right now with Humankind to share that experience, to give that opportunity. Actually, everybody needs an opportunity, and that's an opportunity that
Yeah.
Humankind is trying to also give the other people, the communities, and especially vulnerable communities. Right now, we're coming towards the end of our session here today. Miss Pam, I just have one last question for you today. What would be your advice or message to especially our psychology students, and in regards to arts and everything. So, any message for them today?
Since we're coming to the end, I just want to say thank you to Anthony and to Theva and to you, Valar, for the opportunity to be here this morning and to share. And I hope that as psychology students and future mental health professionals, aside from just looking at the traditional talking therapies, do explore how the creative arts and the expressive arts can complement and support well-being, because they're tremendously powerful mediums, and the country does need more. So please continue with your studies, please get qualified, and I look forward to working with you in the future. Yeah. Are you guys still there?
Group art together. So, how can I encourage him and promote his interest for art? So, that is the question from our viewer today, from Mandy. Can't hear her. Miss Pam, you're muted, I think.
Yeah, sorry, you guys disappeared for a bit, so I wasn't sure.
Right.
Okay, let me see. My daughter has it. Yeah, yeah. So she's talking about her daughter and her son. I'm not sure what is the question though.
The question is, she would like to encourage him and promote his
Mhm.
interest for arts because when they do a group art together, he sees it as a girl's work.
Right. Okay. So, this is a really good point, because just like all things, not everything is good for everybody. Sometimes when we are very enthusiastic about something, we think, oh, that's going to be good for everybody, because it's good for me means it's good for everybody. So I wouldn't force. If your son is at a stage in his life where he doesn't like it, or he doesn't it's not something that he's necessarily attuned to, find something that works for him, rather than force him to do something that doesn't work for him. And sometimes also we think of arts as just painting, but arts is many things. It could be music, it could be drama. There's digital art nowadays. There's all kinds of ways that art can actually be expressed. So I would say if he doesn't like it, it's fine. I wouldn't force it. I'd find what's right for him.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Um, okay, all right. I think we've come to the end of our session, and we're done with the Q&As as well. Thank you so much, Pam, for collaborating with us and providing us to this very insightful session today. We've learned a lot. I hope the viewers have learned a lot as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ms. Pam.
All
Thank
right.
you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Miss Pam. So for our viewers, we also have upcoming webinars from Segi College Subang Jaya. So you can join our Telegram group for more free webinars and updates. As you can see on your screen, the link and the QR code. You can scan the QR code to join our Telegram group. All right, so we have come to the
To the
end
end of our
of
session today.
this virtual forum today. I would like to again, from our behalf of our participants, we would like to thank Ms. Pam for her very insightful sharing session,
Hmm.
and perhaps even myself, I think I have learned a lot from
Definitely, we have.
yeah,
Yep.
from this session today. Okay, so
And of course, if there are volunteers, anybody's
yes.
interested, we will share contacts and send them your way. And hoping that we have better and more upcoming webinars in the future. And yes, please don't forget to, you can participate in this event. You can participate in this Expressive Arts event. We have the IG, we have the Facebook, so please go check us out. You can also catch these recorded webinars and forums on Segi's Facebook,
Yes.
and also the YouTube links that's been provided to you. So thank you very much to everyone and our participants
Yeah, I would
today.
like to add on that. For those who are planning to submit your artwork to us, you will be provided with an e-certification
Okay, that's
as
great.
so as an appreciation for your participation in this expressive arts exhibition event. All
Okay,
right, thank
thank you
you.
very much.
Thank you very
See you
much.
soon.